जात पर
Welcome back, viewers. Our focus continues to be on the tensions that are deepening in the Middle East. After Iran has launched 180 missiles in Israel, Israel has thousands of sirens sounded across the country and civilians rushed for the shelter. This comes after Israel killed Hezbollah's top commander Hassan Nasrallah, and Iran had warned Israel on the front of retaliation. The Israeli military has said that most of the missiles were intercepted with the US help, but that were a small number of hits. It accused Iran of a dangerous escalation and warned of consequences. Before Iran's attack, Israel had landed a series of devastating blows in recent weeks against the leadership of Hezbollah in Lebanon. It then retached the pressure on the Iran-backed terrorist group, which has been firing rockets into Israel since the war in Gaza began by launching a limited ground incursion in the region of southern Lebanon. Israel has said it will continue to strike Hezbollah until it is safe for citizens displaced from homes near the Lebanon border to return. Hezbollah has vowed to keep firing rockets into Israel until there is a ceasefire in Gaza, with Hamas, which is also supported by Iran. Meanwhile, Israel has sharply reacted to these attacks. Israel has said that Iran has still not learned the lesson and it will have to pay for it even further. All right, joining me at this point of time is my guest, Major Mohammad Ali Shah, who's a defense expert and oftenly does give us time on these issues surrounding tensions escalating in the Middle East. Very good morning to you, Major Mohammad Ali Shah. And at this given point of time, it is important to understand, the role of Hezbollah being powered by intense weaponry. And at this given point of time, from 1971 to this time, how its existence has now been at the forefront of threatening the millions of lives of civilians that are still presently trying to battle the survival in Israel and in the southern Lebanon.
Right, Simran, it's a very, very complex situation and a very, very concerning development that has taken place. In fact, especially when after the death of Hassan Nasrallah, after the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, Iran attacks Israel, and which has been condemned by various other countries like France, America, Japan. Japan's new prime minister, he has said he's willing to join America. He's condemned it. He said it's highly unacceptable, and he's willing to join forces with America in order to prevent an escalation of war over there. So this is actually 180 ballistic missiles. 180 ballistic missiles. Most of them are intercepted with the help of America and the Iron Dome system, that the technology that Israel's got. And their rear admiral, their spokesperson, Davis, he had mentioned that there's been no casualty in Israel as yet. So it's fine. But then Iran also had fired on Israel in the Central Economic Zone around month of May, if I'm not mistaken, and that was a symbolic attack because in a Syrian consulate, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard of Iran, a few of them were killed over there, and it was suspected Israeli attack. It wasn't proved till today. Neither has Israel taken responsibility of it, and neither has it been proved. But it is indeed a very, very concerning development. Now, the Defense Secretary Lloyd J. Austin III on Tuesday night of US. In fact, he said the US forces who had helped Israel shoot down missiles remained ready to protect US troops and help defend Israel. Now, in a statement, he also called the attack of Iran as outrageous act of aggression. Now, also, parts of Israeli missile had fallen into Jordan, which was stated by Mohammed Al-Momani, and he's a government spokesperson who had told the state-owned media over there, Al-Mamlaka, that TV, he had mentioned that this had happened. And so when there is a war, of course, there is going to be collateral damage, which is very sad. But again, a collateral damage, if I have to talk in terms of, say, Gaza, for example, Israel, they finished 41,000 civilians. Most of them are children, women, elderly, unacceptable from any side. Now, Iran has attacked Israel Now the very fact is, how do we end this conflict? There's no end. God forbid. I mean, it pains me no end. Over 100 years, this conflict has been going on. I personally feel that Hamas should straight away react and release the hostages without a second's delay. Because if you see logically, after 7th October last year, ever since Hamas took the hostages, since then the escalation has gone on and gone forth. Now because जितने hostages नहीं लिए हैं, उतने लोग तो मारे उससे ज़्यादा, multiplied by 10 people have been killed, they've died over there. I mean, multiplied by 100 I would say. So Hamas should firstly release the hostages. Now, also if you notice, Israel's target, their focus from Hamas has gone towards Hezbollah. Hezbollah, their chief was killed, and Hezbollah, see, every Newton's law of motion says every action has an equal and opposite reaction. When there's a retaliation, of course, retaliation is with much more anger, much more force, much more gravity, much more inertia. So the very fact is, now when Iran attacks Israel, Israel is not going to keep quiet. Israel will fire back, Israel will give back in a much befitting reply. There's a statement has come from Iran that this is only our next release of missiles will be much harder than this. Israel has said we will strike back at a given time of a choice, a place of a choice. We reserve the right to do how we want to do. And Israel is not going to definitely keep quiet. They've got support from various other international nations.
All right, Major Mohammad Irshad. Yet there, of course, making a very important point, and we also have my another guest on the panel at this point of time, Sudhakarji, Major Sudhakarji, joining me at this point. Sir, what exactly, sir, is saying that Major Mohammad Ali Shah, in fact, reiterated that the hostages should be released. But you know, these statements that are coming back and forth, and there were the barrage of missiles that were fired yesterday as well. Now Iran is saying that if Israel attacks, they are not going, you know, to undermine it, and they are going to attack in even a more disastrous manner. How exactly this can be viewed, you know, going further? Is there an escalation that is expected, you know, that can help curb this entire crisis for temporary basis that we can understand? But as of now, the understanding and analyzing the statements, what we can understand that it is only going to get worse.
Yeah, Simran, good morning. Thank you for getting me to your show, and compliments to the co-panelists for having covered his part in a very significant manner. Small correction without taking any offense. I am not a major, I am Major General. And if it is difficult to address me as Major General, simply say General. That's good enough in keeping with the services norms, military norms. So that's a small issue. And the bigger issue is what you have just asked. This is the kind of a response matrix from the Iran side. As I look at it, Simran, we need to join the dots in a larger horizon. When you join the dots, there are issues like US elections around the corner. 5th of November has got a significant bearing. There is an ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Things are hotting up in Indo-Pacific and South China Sea. Indian Ocean region is not quiet. Strategic rivalry off and on. There was a time wherein the People's Liberation Army Navy used to have barely just about one odd ship in Indian Ocean region. Today, there are almost about 12 to 14, including 2 spy ships in the Indian Ocean lurking around south of the Indian subcontinent. So likewise, the satellite numbers have increased. China has got 265 or 245 military satellites. We have a very meager number. So there are a host of other issues which are taking place in the backdrop of the pandemic and post-pandemic and the economic downslide which the global order is witnessing. Except for India, I would say, it is the only bright spot. There is a huge militarization taking place because the world order is totally polarized. So under the backdrop of polarized world order and militarization, anything that happens anywhere in the world, it attributes or it can be easily linked to cause and effect. So cause will lead to effect will become a cause, and it will become a vicious cycle. If Hamas attacked on 7th of October, by defying all the military science, let me tell you, a non-state actor blacking out the electromagnetic spectrum is unheard of in the history of military science. And thereafter launching multi-dimensional attack, and thereafter they have actually set the fuse on for Israel to do whatever they want to do. If I was in place of Netanyahu, perhaps I would have done the same thing that he is doing. How do I, as a leader of the country, how do I not ensure security and safety of my citizens if I am surrounded by forces inimical to my interest? Where is the guarantee? So, and having said this, in response to your question, Simran, is that this is going to go on, to my mind, it comes to maybe 5th of November, maybe beyond that, depending on the leadership who comes to power. If Trump comes to power, Trump instantly is inclined to Israel. He's got a soft corner for Israel. There is no denying the fact. But he's a man. He says, they call it as MAGA, Make America Great Again. What is Make America Great Again? The concept is that enough of losses have been taken by America. Enough of body bags have come. Enough of wars and conflicts have been going on. It's about time that we start breathing the time and space and the freshness of the air of freedom and peace and harmony. He is one person whose mandate, the electoral mandate which he has outlined, is saying very loudly that he will bring the Ukraine-Russia war to an end, as also the Israel and the Lebanon war. I think the world is going through a very tough time. It's about time we bring a complete ceasefire in both the sectors, and particularly Middle East, because Middle East is actually dominating such a kind of I would say, a line of communication for the global trade that it impinges on global south as much as that of the leading economies, the global north. So therefore, but the 5th of November and thereafter, once the results are out, it will come, it will bring out the outcome and subsequently the course of action. If Democrats come to power, I fear, Simran, that this conflict will be going on from Lebanon. It may shift towards Houthis, towards Yemen, and they may get after Israel. Is not going to spare them. They will get after the militia, Iraqi militias. They have the Islamist jihadis and a host of other types of terrorists floating around. They're non-state actors. But I wish to bring out one point, Simran, if you recall 2 days back or 3 days back, I was in your show. I was alluding to the conflicts which Israel has witnessed or experienced in past several years, from 1978 till date. You talk about 1978, talk about 1982, talk about 2000. 2000, of course, the United Nations intervened and they drew a blue line, and south of blue line, the Israel forces fell back. And thereafter 2006, these 4 landmark conflicts, they actually give phenomenal lessons to Israel. What are the lessons? 78, they had a pitfall, they had a serious setback. Come to 82, Hezbollah took both. Their primary aim was to push back the PLO from south of Litani River to north of Litani River. And 2006, the Hezbollah took birth in the year 1982. 2006, 30 days of war, and they had a serious setback. This is for the first time the Hezbollahs brought Israeli armies on the knees, merely by the information warfare. Okay, I'm not talking about 2000 because the United Nations, for a change, tried its best to successfully or effectively implement some kind of a truce between 2 warring parties. That did not work out because Hezbollah subsequently violated. So my fear is that this time Israel is not going to let it go. The ground offensive will carry on, and they will sanitize the area, the launch pads from where Hezbollah centers of power, from where they have been launching cross-border attacks way back in 2000, 2006, and even prior to that. So they are going to neutralize all this, but I do not visualize that Israeli defense forces will attack all these places to capture the land. They will simply sanitize, keep it under surveillance, keep it as a registered target. If need comes, they will engage them with stand-up attacks, with missiles and all other kinds of weapon systems. They have a very effective, formidable air force. They will use that. So with that, I think the conflict is going to actually, it is anybody's guess. It can go either way. But in my opinion, Simran, because NewsX is one of the prominent global channels which has been talking about peace through dialogue and diplomacy. It's about time.
Most
that our
certainly.
Prime
Major
Minister has
General,
spoken to Netanyahu. Yeah.
all right. Okay. I am hearing in detail about what you are saying, and I do understand. It is in fact a much learned and much researched subject that we are speaking about. But understanding, the critical nature of what's happening is not that easy. But when we come to terms with the statements that have come from United States, saying that Iran is going to face the consequences, and you very rightly also brought in the point of the results of the US presidential race elections. At this point of time, US making these statements, also inciting a lot of other retaliatory statements from Israel as well, saying that, Iran is going to face the consequences. Even United Nations, even United States President Joe Biden, in fact, has said that fully in support with Israel it is going to be. And even as Lebanon continues to see more deaths as the war worsens, what exactly this is going to mean, as both of the fronts are engaging in the crossfirings?
Simran, is this question meant for me?
Yes, Major General Sudhakarji. Yes.
Okay, Simran, excellent. Good question you have asked. You see, as on today, there are not two fronts that Israel is facing. In my opinion, it is a frontless war which Israel is going through. Okay, so to the south, they have Gaza Strip. To the north is Lebanon. To the east, you have Syria. Jordan is not coming to the play, but Syria is very gradually getting incrementally involved into the conflict. There are so many people have migrated, almost close to 60 to 70,000. I am told latest figure is crossing 1 lakh or so. They have migrated, they have got displaced, shifted from Lebanon to Syria. And the issues, the factors which are compatible in the interest of Lebanon is that we all know that the Hezbollah is supported by Iran. Syria is also supported by Iran and supported by Russia. So there is a conglomerate, and Americans have been virtually willy-nilly, they have been pushed out of Syria. That's how the regime, Assad's regime is continuing there. But be that as it may, what I would like to say is that yes, you have raised a very important point, but this, my fear is that unless it is calibrated and intervened significantly or in a very effective manner by the international bodies, maybe our Honorable Prime Minister has shown some movement. I do not recommend India to get involved in any kind of broken peace, because we have enough in our bag to keep ourselves busy and engaged, be it Ukraine or the Middle East. But the fact of the matter is, the Americans are the main factor. They have to be not negotiated. Somebody has to talk tough, and that somebody is nothing but the global south, maybe rest of the world, less the leading economies, because the times are changing. America is not what it is to be 25, 30 years back. It's a declining superpower. All the same, it is not lost out the weightage and the significance of being a superpower. It has got the military might, it has got the economic might, but the fact of the matter remains that it is not being responded to the way it is supposed to be responded for a rules-based international order by multiple stakeholders. When I say this, what I mean is, if this war can be brought to an end, the fronts can be minimized, the fronts that you mentioned in your question, to maybe one or two of them, provided America is actually brought under some kind of a pressure, either through process of negotiation or through processes of many other factors, taking help of multiple stakeholders. I am not giving any reference to China or Russia or India. There are ways and means. Mr. Tripathi is there. He is a very seasoned diplomat and ambassador. He should be able to throw some light on this. The only way to bring an end to this conflict in Middle East is to make America realize that whatever is happening, it is leading us to disaster, and this is highly avoidable. Back to you, please.
Major General Sudhakarji, thank you for speaking to us, and indeed a very researched and deep dive understanding of how we can decode, the tensions that are now deepening in the Middle East. Also, before I get my other guest in, let me also firstly understand from Major Muhammad Ali Shah about, very clearly an important point has been raised, that how India's next step into this entire conflict should be. Because at the same time, when we talk about United States, while it's reiterating its support to Israeli defense forces and the Israeli government, how India looks at the entire situation breaking out, especially, and also to the safety of its own nationals in Israel, how crucial that is for India, and how and where India should be, taking the right steps at the right time.
Simran, I commend you for asking me this question, and thank you for asking me this. Now I would just like to firstly quote Mohammad Bagheri, who is the Iran's top military officer, who said in a state television interview that the missile that Iran had fired on Israel had targeted 3 military bases: Nevatim, Hadzerim, and Tel Nov, and also the headquarters of Mossad. So Israeli agency is the headquarters of the Israeli intelligence services, which we all know as Mossad, the famous Mossad. Now, he also said that Iran deliberately had not attacked any civilian establishments and they had not targeted them. So that is one statement made by them. Now, when we come to to India's part, very few people would be knowing actually that the Indian ambassador to Lebanon is incidentally from Manipur. He's a Maite Pangal. And Muhammad Syed Sheikh Rahman, he is an IFS officer. We have Indian troops who are part of the contingent of the UN peacekeeping. We send Indian troops to countries like Sudan, to Congo, to Lebanon. Now, in the army, because there is no regionalism, there is no, you only follow one religion in the army. That's it. That's the country comes first, always, every time. It's very interesting and very heart-touching that they are people from Manipur, the soldiers from Manipur, who are right now, as we speak, at this point of time, in Lebanon, and they are our nursing staff, our doctors. There is an infantry battalion over there. They are mightier than cookies who are fighting in Manipur now, and Manipur, their house is in turmoil. They are working shoulder to shoulder together in tandem in goodwill for world peace. I mean, what better example can it be than this? The world should learn from the Indian Army what we all together focus on. Now, as General Zakaji said, India has enough issues of their own. Now, India most certainly can play a very, very good peace broker if approached, that is, and then it is up to India to decide. India reserves the right to decide whether we actually would want to play a peace broker in this or not, because we are in excellent terms with Israel. We are in very good terms with Iran. We are in very good terms with Lebanon. We are in very good terms with all other countries, apart from 2 nations, namely Pakistan and China. Otherwise, India has got a solid equation over there. Now, the very fact is in Lebanon again, at 3 a.m., if there is bombing going to happen and everyone are asleep, and you hardly get a minute to actually take cover, and there are sirens being blown, and you hardly would get a minute. So it is indeed very alarming and distressing over there. So India's role can be definitely of a very, very good peace broker, but provided India is officially requisitioned for, and India's approach that, okay, today India has emerged as a global power. You go anywhere in the world with an Indian passport, the value of an Indian passport, of an Indian passport holder would be right from the airport, right from the time he steps in, right from the immigration. He's treated with a lot of respect. So India most certainly can play a very, very good role over here. So I would like to conclude by saying my hats off to our Indian Army brethren, our soldiers who risk their lives and who are there, who are totally unmindful of their own personal safety, who go beyond the call of duty, and who are not just, Manipur is a golden state which has not just contributed in nation building, but international peace and harmony and in coexistence. Yes. Yes, sir.
Simran, if I may, just for 1 second, I stand corrected. Ambassador Suresh Goyal, he is not Ambassador Tripathi. I am sorry. Stand corrected, please.
All right. Thank you. Thank you to both my guests who have given us a time and in very detail have also broken down the entire crisis and the conflict for the interest of the viewers. Also now bringing in my other guest, Ambassador and former diplomat Suresh K. Goyal. At this given point of time, sir, a lot has been also understood about India's stand and how this conflict is going ahead. But in the latest, when we talk about in the very recent statements that have just come is the Iranian-backed Iraqi armed groups, which are in fact now saying that if the US is going to now vouch support to the ally Israel, then the US bases in Iraq and the region will be at the top targets. So is the US at this point of time equally, been responsible for in fact adding more to it right now when we look at it? And should the US be also refraining from, making this even worse than what it can get?
Simran, no war situation is an ideal situation. Wars emerge basically out of contest for power, or contest for influence, their own national interest between two competing countries. In this particular case, I would not call Hamas and Hezbollah really as the entities which were competing for influence. I mean, they are, but they are backed by Iran. And therefore, in the current situation, it is really Iran and Israel who are now coming in contest with each other. And USA, you mentioned about the USA. The fact is that the Western countries, including the UK, USA, and the entire Europe, they have no option but to support Israel in the current war, simply because, please, if you look at history, Israel was a creation of the West. When the Jews from Europe came to the area to settle down and create their own country, Balfour Agreement, etc., that is the history of Israel. It is a European creation on the land of Palestine, which they have claimed historically. Therefore, they have to back Israel. Now, coming to the current situation, the fact is that Iran intervened. We were all waiting when that would happen. The situation would not have escalated if Iran had not come into the war by the attack, by the missile attack. But I think there have been so many other attacks, killing of Haniyeh in Tehran, the killing of the Iranian commander, the force commander, killing of so many other support, degradation of Iran's proxies, I would call them. I think it was going to happen sooner or later. Now, Israel has threatened that they will retaliate, and I think they will. And in that retaliation, just like the USA, they were working with Israel to destroy some of the Iranian missiles. I think USA, even when the elections are going on, and they would probably like to keep out of it, at least till the elections are over, but they will have no option. That's like yesterday, they announced the support for Israel. They will announce the support for Israeli defense. How far they will go is critical. If escalation continues beyond control, I think USA will have no option but to come in, and that would again further escalate by bringing the other powers into the war. Therefore, on the whole, I would say we have to wait for what Israelis' retaliation is going to be like, and Iran. In fact, I am a bit doubtful that Iran will retaliate again. Iran has shown once, and I don't think Iran is interested in the war. They'll try to stay away from it. But if it escalates, then we are in for very dismal times. Simran.
All right, Ambassador Suresh K. Goyal, thank you for giving us your time and in fact breaking this down. I appreciate all my guests for contributing their insights to this discussion. Now, viewers, it's time to slip into a short break.